We're gonna make a bolognese today. This is a simple, very easy kind of recipe. I'm gonna use ground grass-fed beef from Stanger Ranch because that's what I've got and it's amazing. You could go veal, you could go lamb, you could use some wild boar. A lot of choices here that'll all work out really well if you substitute like a different protein if you wanted to. Carrots, celery, onions, garlic, concasse tomatoes. Link for that in the description, what concasse is, how to do it. It basically is peeled, seeded, and chopped. You could go with canned peeled, seeded, and chopped tomatoes. That's an option if you're trying to make things a little bit easier. But I've got everything ready to go, so let's make some grass-fed beef bolognese. All right, I've got a tablespoon and a half of garlic chopped nice and fine, about a tablespoon of olive oil. We're just gonna brown this garlic up, nice light golden brown. I got it on like medium-high heat right now. I want to just keep all that garlic in the olive oil so it's frying. Okay, so it's just a couple minutes. Just kind of stirring it around. Get a little bit of golden brown color. You can see kind of what I've got right here. Let it go just a little bit more. And I like that. That is great. Everything, all the veggies, carrots, celery, onions. Amounts are in the description. And we're just gonna mix this together, get it coated with some of the fat. You know, use some of that moisture and the temperature from the veggies, kind of cool off the pan a little bit. It'll get steaming. We're not gonna caramelize these veggies. We're gonna go more, just kind of sweat them out. And I'm getting a little bit of salt in here now. Salt's gonna help draw out a little bit of moisture, help get these tender. And you can hear it sizzling. Pepper. You can hear it sizzling, but I'm gonna turn it down. Cover it. I'm gonna turn it down. My stove goes from low to high with 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in between. So I'm gonna go at like 2. And we'll check on this in a few minutes. I'm just looking to get everything kind of tender and translucent. All right, it's been, I don't know, 5 minutes or so. It's just been hanging out here, doing its thing. And you can see it's releasing juices. Everything's getting tender. So I'm gonna turn my heat up. I'm gonna stay with it right now. I'm gonna cook it out a little bit. I don't want to go for like any dark like color like I would if I were doing like a beef stew or braised short ribs or ossobuco. I don't want to have that kind of sweetness from the carrots and the onions with what we're doing today. So if you get a little bit of color, no worries, but we're just trying to avoid like that dark color that we would use in other situations, other applications. Okay, so this has been going for a couple minutes here uncovered on like medium high heat, and the sound's kind of changed. Instead of it like having that steaming kind of sound, you can hear it kind of sizzling and starting to kind of essentially fry in the little bit of fat that we use to get everything going in that olive oil. And my onions are looking pretty translucent. You can kind of feel everything's starting to break down and get soft. I'm not looking for everything to be like mush cooked tender. Just develop a little bit of the flavor and sweetness. So I got tomato paste, and we're gonna get the tomato paste going. I do want to incorporate this and kind of fry the tomato paste a little bit on the bottom. You cook it out. So I haven't turned the heat down. It's still like on that number 5, like medium high. kind of setting. And the tomato paste is going to want to burn on the bottom. So, you know, don't walk away from it for 10 minutes. Otherwise, it would be a brulee. It would be black. It would be burned. And I'm starting incorporating some of the veggies here. And you can kind of smell it. You kind of smell the tomato paste starting to, you know, caramelize a little bit, cook out some of the acidity. Scrape down my sides. Concasse, peeled, seeded, chopped. Skins and seeds, the skins especially, super unpleasant. And then the seeds, we don't need them. I mean, it'll look like seeds, and it will look like there are seeds when I make tomato sauce, but it's really just chopped garlic. I know it's hard to tell because this is a well-used, old cast iron pot, but it's starting to stick to the bottom. So I'm just, you know, kind of scraping it off, releasing it. This is going to deglaze all that, you know, caramelized tomato paste in the bottom. And you can smell it. You can smell the caramelization of the tomato paste as you go, and you'll see it start to stick on the bottom. So what's it been? A couple minutes maybe? Tomatoes. Just mix everything together. And we're gonna cook this down. I'm gonna give it a little bit of salt, just so I don't have to add it all at the end. I'll kind of add a little bit as we go. Just turn it up a little bit. All right, I can hear it. It's coming up, starting to simmer. I'm gonna give it a little stir. And then I'm gonna turn it down to number 2, like kind of a low. And we'll let this kind of cook down, cook the tomatoes out, get kind of a sauce going. Okay, it's been about 30 minutes. My sauce has kind of just been sitting here simmering. I'm gonna go ground beef. And this is like kind of the part that's hard to explain and best to be seen. So as we put it in there, we're gonna have like a mass of a bunch of raw beef. And it's gonna take a little bit of mixing and a little bit of patience to get it all to break apart. Because we don't want giant chunks of meat. We want small pieces of meat. We want it to be more of a sauce versus, you know, like chunky chili or something. So I'm gonna just, you know, turn this back up nice and hot, high heat, and get it moving. And, you know, just take a little bit of work to break it up and, you know, get all this stuff to separate. And as it's raw, it's gonna kind of fight with you. It's gonna take a while. Like as the protein starts to get cooked, then it'll start to separate into pieces that will resemble more of the vegetables that we put in there. So, you know, it's gonna wanna chunk up like that. And we wanna break those up. We wanna make sure we don't have those massive pieces of meat, because that's not what a bolognese is. I know that there's a lot of different ways to do this. Some people will cook their meat ahead of time and, you know, try and get a lot of brown color on it. That is a way to do it. That is not how I'm doing it. And you know, some people actually flour their meat too. That's an option, I guess, if you want to go down that road. I don't think that's necessary. I think there's going to be plenty of thickening that happens from the tomato paste, the tomatoes, the veggies, and from just the reduction that's going to happen as we go. So you can see how this is changing, like as I'm just kind of working it here. I've turned it into more of a homogeneous mass. And you're going to get to this point and you're going to think, oh no, there's not enough tomato, there's not enough sauce. But do not worry, there is so much moisture, so much liquid inside the meat. It's going to really cook out and become more viscous than what you see here. So right now it's like, it seems more like a pot of meat than a meat sauce. And that's okay, I would expect that. So this feels really well incorporated, like the meat and the veggies are really well distributed between each other. And now I'm really just going to bring it up to heat and reduce it down, and we'll simmer slow for like 45 minutes, and then it's done. It will be easy, very easy. Kind of set it and forget it on the stove type of project. Good to make in a decent sized batch so you can cryovac it and freeze it, and then it's easy to pull out bolognese when you want to have bolognese pasta one night. Okay, so it's on like high heat. I'm going to cover it up. I'm going to let it come up to like a nice rolling kind of boil. Everything's well combined here. And then we'll turn it down. All right. It's coming up to temperature here. Simmering, boiling a little bit. Let's see, is it going to recover? Are we hot? It's a tomato-based sauce. It's got tomato paste in it. We want to make sure that you do stir the bottom. Make sure it's not sticking down there. Let's see, are we good? All right, so I'm going to cover this up. I'm going to turn it down real low. And then I'll come back in like 5 minutes just to make sure that it's simmering. And we'll let it do its thing. And we'll cook it for about 45 minutes or so, and maybe towards the end we might have to uncover it and like adjust consistency with some reduction, but we'll see what we get when we get there. Okay, I actually set a timer, and it's been 16 minutes since we covered this up and set it to simmer gently. So that's about the speed that it's going at, and you can see how it's become a little bit more viscous, a little bit more saucy. It's still relatively thick, but it moves different. It moves more fluid. You can start to see some of the fat getting released from the meat. And I'm going to let it go covered for another 15 minutes. And then probably the last 15 minutes I'll let it go uncovered. But I'm going to let it breathe a little bit. So I'm just leaving it ajar. The lid is ajar. No, it's a lid. But it's off to the side just a little bit so I get a little bit of evaporation. Let it cook out just a little bit, have a little bit of reduction happen. We'll check back in 15 minutes. All right, it's been another 15 minutes that this has been simmering, covered. You can kind of see what speed it's going at here. And let's see, I'll let it come back up. So when it's bubbling, you can see that there's like a little layer of liquid that kind of forms at the top. So there's a lot of like moisture in here still. It's not, like it needs to reduce a little bit. I want it to have a little bit more viscosity what's in here. But it's got really nice color. It's not sticking to the bottom. I've actually come by a couple times and made sure that it's not. And even though it's not done, so you can see kind of how there's a lot of liquid here at the top, I want to cook some of this out. It's got nice flavor. I know it's gonna need salt even though it evaporates, and I always want to get my salt in earlier than later because then it develops flavor instead of just tasting like salt. So I just put a little bit in. I know I'm gonna have to adjust at the end. But I want to go uncovered now for like 15 minutes. Everything's cooked. All our veggies, like we really kind of, cooked all the tomatoes and veggies for quite a while before we even put the meat in. So it was never an issue of getting those tender. Let's see. I'm gonna go a little faster because I do want some evaporation, but I don't want to boil it all over my countertop. And there's a little bit of fat on the edges, the fat that's coming out of the meat, the olive oil that we used initially. I might come around and take that out as it cools, as it solidifies. I might not, bother trying to fight with it right now because I'm just going to take out sauce. Let's see. I'm waiting to see, like, is it moving at the speed I want it to? Yep, that's cool. If it stays like that, I'm happy with that. That'll be the kind of the tempo that I want it cooking at. All right, I'll set a timer for 15 minutes and we'll see kind of what it's looking like as far as viscosity goes. And if it's looking, like it's thickened up a little bit and it tastes nice, we'll throw a bundle of herbs in there and we'll call it good and cool it off. Okay, it's actually been 20 minutes. It's been kind of sitting here simmering away uncovered for 20 minutes. I like the viscosity here. I've got some reduction. It's got some good thickness, but it's not dry. And when I taste the meat, the ground beef is tender. It's not dry, like we didn't take it so far that it's overcooked and it's released all of its fat, and then it's dry. But it's also cooked enough so that, like, when you bite it, there are no like sinewy little pieces in the ground beef that are like, kind of get caught up in your teeth and make you chew a little bit. So I like where we are. I'm going to turn it off and I'm going to leave it on the stove to cool off for a little bit before I ice it down. And while it's doing that, I've got some marjoram and some basil. So marjoram is similar to oregano, but it's got a little bit more of a floral kind of flavor, less of that astringent kind of edge that oregano has. So I'm going to fold it up into a little bundle with some basil, and I'm going to tie it up. I want to bruise up these leaves. I want them to release all their aromatic, wonderful flavor into my bolognese as it cools. And I'm tying it up so, I can get it out. I don't want basil and marjoram leaves floating around in there. And nothing fancy, just wrap it up and then, a couple good old-fashioned granny knots, right? Maybe pull off any like strays that I have here. And I'll give it like one more taste. It's gonna be kind of hot right now. Of course, it's been simmering. But the flavor is gonna change as it cools off. And I think it's gonna need a little salt. Yep, a little bit. And I feel like, this is way better to have the next day. Everything kind of mellows and just smooths out flavor-wise. I like this consistency. It's not wet and soupy. I stand a spoon in it. I stand a spoon in it. But anyway, bundle in. And I'm going to bury it. I'll come back around and mix it. But that's it. So total cooking time, we did about a half hour with all the tomatoes, break the tomatoes down, and then we did about 45 minutes? Yeah. A little more than 45 minutes just cooking the meat and getting it to the right, tenderness and, flavor development and everything. So I'm going to cool this off on the stovetop, and then I'll ice it down in a giant pile of snow outside because I have lots of snow. You could use an ice bath. And then if you want to go Tupperware, once it's nice and cold, into the fridge, if you're going to use it right away, or if you want to go cryovac it into portions, put it in the freezer, and then you can take it out as you need it. Or if you made this on a Sunday or something, because you had the day off, and you made it in the morning, you let it cool off, and then you're going to use it that night, maybe it would still be out here on the stove cooling off. Here's our bolognese. It's been just kind of cooling countertop in the pot with the bundle of marjoram and basil in it for the last, hour or so. I'm going to go ice this down the rest of the way. However, if this were you, and you're like, no, Chris, I want to have bolognese pasta right now, tonight. Well, great, do it. So how would I reheat this? Well, insert video. This is what we're going to do. Now, before I do that, I'm going to use some Gemelli, which is, it's not a spring. It's like Gemelli means twins, right? It's like an S-shaped, it's a small pasta, macaroni. You could go spaghetti, any kind that you want. Like a tagliatelle would be really nice, or even like a pappardelle would be pretty good, or even just like straight up spaghetti. Not an angel hair. I wouldn't enjoy that myself. Gnocchi would be good. Bow ties would be great. Orchiette could be awesome. Kind of anything. Like, you got a lot of freedom here. So let's go make this into something in a bowl. Okay, so we're gonna get a little bowl of pasta going here. It's just for me. You could scale this up, but we're gonna start with a smashed clove of garlic, a little nub of butter, a little bit of olive oil. So I'm just gonna go medium heat. Just wanna get some garlic flavor, that's all we need. And a little sprig of marjoram, smash it up a little bit, fry it up in the fat, release some of its flavor. I just happen to have a little bit of tomato sauce out, so I'm just gonna go a little bit. A little bit of tomato. My bolognese. I would guess that right now, this is 3/4 of a cup. I'm being pretty generous, I could go less, but oh no, it's dinner time for me right now, so pasta for dinner. And you know, it had cooled down to room temperature. I haven't put it away in the fridge yet, so it's still pretty warm, so it's not gonna take very long to heat it up here. But I do wanna bring it up so it's simmering, it's nice and hot. Turn it down. I just want to get a little bit of evaporation, get like a nice coating on my pasta, on my gemelli. But I don't want to cook this down so it's like dry or it gets, you know, greasy. Just want to give my pasta a little bit of time in the sauce before we go to the plate. So this looks like a nice balance of, you know, meat and pasta to me. All right, let's go to the plate.